So in today's web dev tip, we're going to test out our Node application that we push to our DigitalOcean server. And what we're going to do is ensure that it's got the necessary environment variables available to it so that it can actually connect to the local database that is running on the server. So if you remember from yesterday's tutorial, what we did is create a separate environments file, which essentially is used for our production build, which will be on the server. And instead of actually having a hard-coded local database connection string, we're actually accessing the environment in which the actual Node application has been run, and we're looking for a property, an environment variable called db_connection_string. So on the server, what we're going to do is we're going to run our Node app, and that will fail at first because we don't provide this information, but then I'll show you how you can provide this environment variable to the Node script so that we can make a successful connection to the database. So over on our server, I've logged on as the rickandroll user, and if we just navigate into the apps folder and then navigate into rickandroll.me, you'll notice we've got the rickandroll folder, which is our project name for the API in here as well. And it seems a bit like unnecessary to have this extra folder, but don't forget, if you've got a domain that's got multiple backend services running, you might want to keep them in their own separate folders. So it's a bit unnecessary, but just so that we've got everything separated out. But you can see here we've got this main.js file, which is the Node application that we've deployed through our GitHub pipeline. So if I was just to run node main.js to start off with, you'll see we get an error because we're looking for something which doesn't exist. We're trying to create a MongoDB connection string from an undefined value, and that is because this process.env variable doesn't have a db_connection_string property at the moment. So that's what we're trying to populate to ensure that we don't get this kind of error. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, and probably the easiest is to provide that environment variable inline on the command that you're running. So you basically just provide the name of the environment variable and its value just before you run the Node script. So it might look a little bit something like this. So we'll say db connection string, and don't forget that's what's matching in the process.env property that we're looking for. And we just paste in the value now of our connection string. So I've prepared this already, where we've got the user and the password for our local MongoDB database, which is running in our Docker container on the server. And then as soon as we've done that, all we need to do then is run node main.js. And we should now make a successful connection to the database, and the Node app is now running on this local port on the remote server. So don't forget, we also configured Nginx to actually map incoming requests to /API to this local host address as well. So we should now be able to actually do what we did originally many weeks ago in our local setup, and actually make a post request to the particular endpoint and generate a new short URL. But you'll see there's a little bit of an issue with that, which we'll look at in a future tutorial. But let's just test that out, just so that we can doubly confirm that the database is set up and the API is actually running as well. So let's head on over to Postman. So this is the kind of request that we made before. So it's a simple post request to the local host, and then it's API /short URL to generate one of those short URL links. So obviously what we're going to do now is, instead of HTTP localhost, we're just going to replace that with our domain name. So /rickandroll.me. And you would expect this to work because we've mapped Nginx to point to the Node application. But if we actually send that, you should see there's a bit of a problem. We are actually getting a response from our Node API, but we're actually getting a 404 because we're trying to post to this short URL endpoint, which it really should be what we've configured is /API /short URL. So the reason for this is we've got two things kind of working against each other at the moment. We've got our routing that's inside of our Express app, which is expecting to receive requests at /API /short URL. But we've also configured Nginx to map any requests to /API to the Node app as well. So basically we're getting a duplication of this API endpoint here. And just to prove that, if we say API short URL, we should find that the endpoint now works for us, and we're actually getting a response, much like we did in the local app that we were running on our computer. So we'll need to address that, as I say, in a future lesson, just to make sure that we've got our routing set up. We've got a few options, whether we either configure that on Nginx's end, or whether we actually make a change within our express routing. There you go, you can see we've got our Node application up and running, the database is connected, and we're able to make post requests to our express app and insert new items into the database too. So there is one problem that we've got with the way that we've configured this in the server, because what we're doing at the moment is we've got the Node app up and running, which is great, but as soon as we terminate our SSH connection, or even if we just close the Node script from running here, what we'll find is that this actually stops running. So if we send another request, you can see now we're getting a response from Nginx saying that we can't find the Node app running anymore. So what I'm going to do in the next tutorial is show you a way that you can get your Node app up and running with the environment variables, of course, and make sure that it keeps running even when you've closed your SSH connection or just the terminal that you're working on. But that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.